For this video, I have entitled The Danger of Ideological Caring Without Emotional Connection. So, what do I mean by that? Well, the word danger is fairly obvious, self-evident. Ideological caring is what I'm referring to here is using the idea of concepts and labels and opinions and using words and phrases to promote caring about a subject or a group, but almost exclusively making points and using words to express ideas with very little, if any, vulnerable emotional sharing, communicating from those that are promoting the ideas and those that they wish to listen and those that are listening and responding. I mean, if you've had any of my videos before, it's true to say that recently I've spoken a number of times about the importance of really creating connection and communication, understanding between different human beings, whether you're in a couple relationship, which is my specific area, or your work colleagues or relations or friends or even strangers that have come together and are talking. It's vital. I think that word is really relevant at this stage for the evolution of us human beings, the whole human race, to recognize that we do not really know how to communicate with each other in a way that gives the highest possibility and confidence in the presence of difference, or at least perceived difference on the outset, to actually create a true sense of authentic acknowledgement of each other's position. Even if you don't agree with it, it's perfectly possible. A validation that each of you are entitled to your view, if you don't like the other person's view. And that if you can create that experience with another person and use language that is respectful, caring, values their view, as well as inviting them and requesting that they value yours, then you've got the basic ingredients for a higher level communication, verbal communication. And just for a moment, referring to all sorts of subjects going on in the world right now, wars and areas of conflict and disagreement, as well as subjects that have appeared in society over the last 10 or 12 years. It's apparent that we don't really know how to talk with each other when we have a strong meaning or feeling or need or want associated with the subject we're talking about, and there's somebody else that we're interacting with who has a different view. It very often gets us to feel tense and conflict can happen. And as I've spoken about before in other videos, we tend to communicate by trading labels, opinions, interpretations of who the other person is and what they mean and what they're doing, which, if we haven't all noticed by now, doesn't usually go very well. And I'll probably do another video because it's such an important subject, but it strikes me more and more as I work in the area I do, and I think and see about what helps human beings communicate optimally and in a benign way, and creates real change and eliminates and reduces or eliminates completely tension and conflict and violence and fighting. I think what we're being faced with all that's going on in the world right now, is that we are going to learn by hook or by crook that we've got to start talking, all of us, and certainly the politicians, and certainly those that run corporations, all of us need to start talking with each other differently when it's helpful to do so. What sort of difference? Well, here we come back to talking about what's always present. It's always the elephant in the room. I've talked about this before. It is our need to bond, to be cared about by others. We essentially are beings that operate from love, and we are incredibly and intensely interested in experiences in which we experience that others care about us. We have not been educated to understand how important this is and to know how to do it. So what happens is we get into problems in life with relationships, and then we go and see a professional in a compartment. We might call a counselor, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a psychotherapist, a mediator. And we're sort of surprised that we're not really getting anywhere, but things seem to be going a bit downhill at the moment. Well, my take on it is that we're having a mirror held up to us that is showing us, hey guys, it didn't work before, it didn't work the last time or the previous 7 times. You're just digging a deep hole if you keep communicating this way. That again, through pain and discomfort, to see and learn that we have to talk differently with each other. And when we do, magical things can happen. So anyway, that's that. But let's get back to the topic of this particular video. The danger of ideological caring is when it takes place without emotional connection. So there have been a number of subjects in which that's happened recently. Going back, we've had Brexit. So people started using labels like Ramonas and COVID idiots. And sorry, that was the COVID thing. Xenophobic, or even sometimes people who wanted to remain, sorry, to leave, were called racist. But the rhetoric got more intense and extreme as the date of the polling day about staying or not staying in Europe took place. So there were all these labels, but I didn't see anybody talking about their emotions and feelings that were important to them underneath the things they said. They may say nothing about emotions, but they used labels. And basically what I saw was the labels separate and push you away from each other. Same thing happened around COVID. And then since then, we've had 2 areas of ideological and personal and societal subjects to do with racism, which has always been something that's from time to time been more prominent in society and in Western society. We've had periods where we've had more specific references to racism and ideological words and labels that have been encouraged people to educate themselves by. So we had white fragility, white prejudice, and critical race theory were just, a general subject matter within which those labels were contained. We had the transgender thing. So if people who were very enthusiastic about their choice in terms of what they were called or what gender they chose, they would often call people who didn't immediately go along with using their pronouns or whatever transphobes, and doubtless sometimes there are similar words that are used the other way around. We've had the Israel-Gaza conflict, and more recently we've had the subject of immigration, the subject of Islam, and most recently the war with Iran. all these subjects beget, not surprisingly, because we have to communicate, but it's when we exclusively use labels and don't speak about our more vulnerable and soft feelings associated with them. Because it's easy to talk about anger and frustration and irritation. It's not so easy for somebody who feels very aggrieved about something to step away from showing anger and labeling others and say, actually, I feel really scared and I feel so sad underneath and lost, distraught because I just feel so disconnected in terms of how I or this group are being addressed. So one of the things that I just want to spend a bit of time speaking about is that what actually happens perhaps when you get this kind of desire to change people's attitudes about a group that merit and need more love and care and haven't been treated equally and lovingly as all of us would wish for ourselves and others to take place. I just want to read a few lines that reflect something about that process. So, human beings don't change primarily through being correctly categorized. They change through feeling safe enough to be open and affected by another person. Concepts can open the door, yeah, but connection is usually what lets someone walk through it. There are two typically main ways of approaching difficult human differences. There are conceptual, ideological frameworks, transgender, critical race theory, and all that goes in that, important, that provide labels, categories, theories, and occasionally when there is what I might call an over-enthusiasm, indoctrination. And the other way is relational experiential processes that invite vulnerability, emotional openness, and direct contact and connection. So some of these concepts, so in critical race theory, I already mentioned white fragility or white privilege can be and provide useful conceptual maps that help name patterns that many people are unable to see or find hard to see. However, they can also trigger defensiveness or shame. And then what may happen is that shifts people into self-protection rather than staying open. And if someone is in a defensive state, the brain is no longer open and in a good position to reflect, empathize, and learn. I hope we can agree that the goal is understanding, not winning, and using concepts to notice patterns can be helpful as part of a process that desires and needs in our interactions that prioritize curiosity, emotional honesty, and empathic listening without interpreting or disagreeing. So instead of leading with labels, although they can be an important part, we also need to equally and equivalently include experience and relationship and connection. So I think from just speaking about that it's probably fairly clear. It's clear what it is that I've said, and I think I've said it. But certainly, if we're going to change people or label people in ways that give information, we also need to be very aware that in the giving of that information, there is somebody listening to us who have emotions and feelings, however much they are or aren't aware of that, that may be part of their response. And that my experience is, and perhaps you also know this or are open to hearing what I'm saying, is that when we connect emotionally and relationally with another human being, that is the grist, that is the gold, that is the nectar that creates coming together, understanding, validation, and healing. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe. I'll be doing some more soon. And please let others know who you think might be interested. And if you happen to know anybody who has a podcast or might be interested in having me on, then please let me know in the email address below. Okay, thanks very much.